Hello, welcome to another edition of Low-Code Campfire. This is episode 178 for Friday, January 17. Today, we'll picked out a topic: testing, 1, 2, 3 testing. We'll talk about that in a minute. I am Dale Warner, head of support for Plantin App. Welcome. This is an event that we do on Fridays, every Friday, most Fridays. And it's just a gathering for our complete Plantin App community where we get together and share the challenges and techniques of coding in low codes. This is all skill levels welcome. We record all of these, put them on YouTube, so you can get to them at youtube.com/PlantinApp. We will run something like this agenda today. There's a few more topics, but we'll stop and say hello because we're a friendly group, and then we always do first call, and then contributions to the Campfire website, things from our community. We'll wrap up after an hour or so and go into our Afterglow segment. That's where we raise a virtual adult beverage and just hang out for a few more minutes. So do engage with us. You can submit questions and topics in advance. That's one way to engage. You can use this QR code, or you can email me at support@plantinapp.com, and we'll put any topic that you like onto this agenda. And perhaps I'll do a little research in advance if you do me that. So with that, hello all. Nice group today.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dale,
Wherever you
and
are.
everybody on the call.
All right, who has first call? I think everyone that's on here has been here before, but first call is all about if there's something specific that you came to the meeting and wanted to talk about, get some advice on, get some planning with, we'd be happy to jump in with that.
Dale, that email we got about the government license, could you explain that at some point?
I can give an overview, but I don't know anything about pricing. The idea is that we are issuing a license. We're about to embark on a campaign for local governments, counties, and things like that, and want to make it very easy in that process to get past licensing. So while the idea is that you'll be able to use it for whatever applications within that organization, that government, whether that's one or several, and just to suit your developer team and your needs. But again, I don't have any information on pricing. Does that help at all with what you're trying to do, with what you're
Yeah, I
asking?
was just trying to get some clarification on it. I read the email, but it was a little confusing. So that's fine. I don't want
So,
to waste a bunch of time here on it.
couple things. If you think you might have customers that are or application for that, I can get the sales team to be in touch with you and so get clarity around that, uh, around pricing and exactly how to use it. The other thing I'll mention is that we are about to kick off a marketing campaign, and I don't know how they're going to target those, but wouldn't surprise me if this same list, or if you've shown any interest in it, you'll be on the list, and so there'll be more information forthcoming.
Okay.
Do you want me to mention it to the sales team?
Not right now. I want to get some of these other issues that we've got ironed out where we can get our Planet App version upgraded to the latest version. Let me get through all that, and then we can
Great.
maybe circle back to that. What is this Bazinga I keep seeing? I must have
Yes.
missed something. I see it on the community page, but I don't really understand what that is.
So Bazinga is our offering having to do with AI. Um, it is not. It's a wrapper around other AIs, so whether it's GPT or other models, but it provides governance and also handles um, a methodology for giving it knowledge. So, for example, if you ask an AI a question that's specific to your business, it probably doesn't know anything about it or very little about your business, versus if we Bazinga, you can feed it, for example, your website or any other information you want it to consume, PDFs, client websites, whatever it is that you want it to understand and know. And then when you ask it a question, it's based on that. So that's um, a piece of it. Let's take a look. So it's bazinga.ai is the website. And so it this will give you an idea about the things that it will provide. So you can, it's a framework. It's a number of things, but it's all around AI. So you can build tasks. So using since it's an AI built on Plantain app, and since you understand some about Plantain app, you'll understand that it can use APIs and workflows, for example, to reach out and connect to other systems to gain information in real time or to impact those systems in real time. Um, the Let's see, what else do we have here? Um, so interacting with emails, sending emails, and so it's just a smarter and it's a wrapper around AI.
Okay.
So I'll just drop that link in the chat in case anybody needs that. And then we were talking local gov. Is there anybody else that's on the call that might want to have a call from our sales team?
Yeah, I'd like to understand it more.
Okay. Perfect. I'll ask Bogdan to reach out.
Another first call?
Sure, please.
It's not a coding one. It's more a reference one. Some probably months now back, I asked a couple questions about JSON and explained about a app that I was doing where I have to get a JSON string back from an app, or the app calls me with a JSON string. I have to break it down, go and talk to a payment gateway, and then go back. Too many other projects. Haven't been able to get back into it, so I've lost where that description was. So it's more of a general question of how do you track down all the stuff that you've got in your many YouTube videos. I know you do a transcript of them, but is there, for instance, again, talking about AI, would you be able to just go to ChatGPT and say, hey, could you go look up Planet App and give me all the instances where they talked about JSON or something to that effect?
Um, that would be an interesting use for Bazinga. Um, I'm gonna, I'll bring that to Bogdan. Um, Let me make a note of that.
There's a wealth of knowledge. I mean, all the stuff we talk about, all the stuff that you do in cafe. So there's a huge amount of how to use the tool. The problem is in finding it when you need that one little thing.
Yeah. Um, so the YouTube search, which is Google powered and will um, include searching through the transcripts. Um, I don't know if your name would have been mentioned in that. Oh, that's too far back. Um, but uh, JSON. So something like this, you might might be back where you asked about it 4 months ago. Does that sound right?
Maybe.
Um,
Here's my problem, and maybe maybe it's just me, maybe I'm just lazy, but to find a video and then have to watch an hour of video, or scroll through the video to try to find the point at which it says, here's the call, here's uh, here's the technique to use, here's the action to use. Um, Seems like a lot of time, and maybe I'm just too ADD. I don't know.
so, um, just so that you know what we do, the when you choose one of these, and absolutely you I understand you're not going to listen to the whole hour, but we do break down by the minute what we were talking about. And so
Right.
if
So
you
just scrolling through that.
look through the descriptions and find the that's as best as we have um, at this point.
That's why I was wondering, maybe ChatGPT would read those things and say, and even give me the answer. I mean, I've asked various questions of how do I do this, and it comes back with the how to do it. And of course, it used various sources for how. So I'm gonna give that a try.
Okay. But yeah, um, feeding our so what we do, we take these are AI generated. We take the transcripts, which by the way, the transcripts are accessible to wherever the transcript is. You can hit show transcript on any YouTube video and it'll load the entire transcript, and that gives you the ability to search for a keyword, for example, but or search within this video.
Yeah.
So when you get close, that's another way to get into it. But we take this entire video transcript, run it through AI together with the timestamps, and get it to pull out these markers. But your suggestion is well taken. If we were to take those transcripts and feed them into Bazinga, that and then provide a way for you to use Bazinga to ask a question, you could well likely get an answer. We do have there is a Bazinga assistant. Its name is Planty, and some of the responses that you see back on support tickets are generated by Planty. It seems like the the low-code cafes and campfires might be a good addition to that in terms of techniques and references. So I'll bring that up with the team.
Thank you. I'm using it for a memory enhancer.
Mm-hmm.
Soon
Absolutely.
AI will tell me where I left my keys.
um, yeah.
Travis,
Oh, you're advertising memory supplements, and I was about to mention AirTag. I was looking at those the other day. Amazing, in
Hmm.
not much money and amazing functionality. I haven't. Anyone have one of those? It sounds very clever. So Mark is asking, knowledge base, is the knowledge base being fed? I don't know. I don't think that that's accurate. I don't think it is, and that's probably another. That would have been a possibility too. The fact the if the knowledge base was being fed, that might be a good way to do the kind of search that Don was talking about. So thanks for mentioning it.
Yeah, and that's something that, Dale, we probably should maybe go back and take a look at to see if we can automate more of it, because part of the problem was there was still a manual process involved. So yeah.
Would you put that on our list to discuss next week, please?
Yes. Mhm.
I was looking in that knowledge base just 2 days ago, and I didn't find much this time.
Thanks for holding our feet to the fire, he said with a sheepish grin.
It's a great tool. It'd be nice to continue using it if you have the time to set it up.
And just thinking about that, the knowledge base, the idea was to feed it a lot of content and then use it. It uses our search product, Search Boost, which is um, very good for that purpose. Um, but yeah, enhancing that further with AI sounds like a win as well. That might be a good place to reveal, like with Bazinga, you can establish a chat bot. So something that pops up on the corner of a website. It's kind of one of the built-in functionalities, or one of the core functionalities that you can implement very easily. So if we were to put a chat bot on knowledge base, that might be interesting. Okay, next call.
This is Mark. I do have a question I would like to ask, and that is, I would like to understand the generate PDF action a little bit better. Reading the documentation, visiting the website that supports the action, it appears that you can feed it a URL instead of HTML. And I would like to try that, and I might get more value out of running the idea past you first. I want to build a complicated report page that could have different data on a different day. And so sections on that page would grow or be smaller depending on what we were reporting on. And so I would like to be able to create a PDF of this report page. And I'm wondering if I can use the tools of Plant and App to create the page. Like if I have a listing and that returns the correct number of rows for what I'm reporting on at the moment, can I capture the page with the listing resolved and looking good? Is that asking too much for a PDF generator to capture the result of a page that has Plant and App tools on it? And you might not know the answer because you're not making PDFs, as a job. So I don't know.
So for just generate PDF is the action we're talking about. And when you said, were you referring to you went to this to determine?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Versus we don't allow picking a page, right?
I couldn't find how to do it.
Yeah.
And like Don, I had gone to the into YouTube to see where we talked about it, and I was looking for the right video. I know we did talk about it before.
Well, for once, I might be able to actually help on this one.
Jump in, Don.
I've done a number where I've had to generate PDFs. Again, we're going, everything is connected here. Governments love to generate PDFs rather than just using a screen and a database. They want us to get a PDF and then pass it around. So, and I hope they're not listening because I don't want them to be mad at me. I want to get more of them. But they do like that. And so what I've done is I use tokens, a lot of tokens, and build the page that I need to generate, and then just hand the token to the generate PDF. So I don't I don't put all the work inside the generate PDF. I know the generate PDF will take a hunk of HTML and turn it into one or more pages of a PDF. So I generate my HTML in a bunch of constants, bunch of tokens rather, depending on what I need to put out there. And then the last step is generate PDF.
Thank you. And that's my starting point. I have been doing that as well. And, I do have to work quite a bit to generate those tokens on a variable type report with variable amount of things being returned to it. And it was my thought, well, I can do lists and forms really quickly. And I wondered if I could do it that way instead. Instead of generating all the HTML by my own programming.
Almost looks like you're trying to get to a export a page to an HTML type of function that we need.
Yes, very good. And just I have to be picky too, because I wouldn't want the menu on the top of the page to be included in the PDF. Maybe if some of the footer. So ideally, I'd like to grab page content.
Ben's got his hand up. He must have a script for it.
Mhm.
No, not a script, but information that can help and or hinder. I don't know, depends. So quickly, I think the answer to your question is, can you feed a web page to the PDF generator? And the quick answer to that would be yes, by using a token that is a server request. So you point to the page on your website. Now that server request, as an ancillary piece to what you just said, every page has parameters you can pass to it that will suppress the page skin. So you won't see the menu and all that other stuff. You just see the content. So you can use that. It will return to you the HTML that you can then feed to the PDF generator. Now, there's a couple of caveats to that. Number one, I'm not 100% sure, especially in things like grids, where the data gets loaded using AJAX, if the server request is going to wait for all the data to come down before it returns to you the HTML. So there may be, you'd have to test it. There may be a situation where this won't work because the AJAX hasn't completed. So you're getting the page prior to it being completely populated with data. That's problem number one, or potential. The issue that I know you most likely will hit is the formatting, because the grids and all that other stuff, they do use CSS for formatting. So you are probably not going to obtain the HTML, or rather when it displays as a PDF, it's not going to display as probably anticipated. It's probably going to look funky because it's going to be missing the CSS files needed to make it look nice. So in a situation like that, you're going to have to manually also add the CSS references directly into your PDF creation routine. That way, the CSS that is used on the page to render is also being used at the time you're rendering your PDF. I hope that kind of helps point you in some direction.
Yeah, it's good to know those things. Something related to what you said that I have tried is I went ahead and brought the page that I want to PDFify already on my screen, and I went into inspect and I tried to grab the page content that I wanted to put into a PDF and then throw that into this generate PDF tool that we've got. And it didn't turn out well. So I think that what it was missing was the CSS. I kind of thought that that would have already been applied to a page that was fully rendered already.
No.
But obviously there's things I don't know.
Yeah, the way browsers work, CSS files are transmitted to a web browser separately, and then HTML references those CSS classes. So when you send it to the PDF generator, it's all it sees are the class names. But if you don't also supply it with the CSS itself, it has no clue what those classes are. And if it doesn't find them, it doesn't do anything. It just ignores it and keeps moving. So those styles won't be applied. The other thing you also have to be careful with is, especially with images, if your web page that you're generating, if you're able to get this to look nice, if it's generating images or displaying them, those images cannot be relative
URL.
in how they are described in the URL. They must be explicit. The whole entire path of the image must be supplied. If you give a relative path to an image, it's not going to see it and it's not going to render. Just another caveat.
Because it's relative to the PDF, not to the source where it actually is.
No, it's relative to the website, not to the PDF.
Well, right.
That's where the problem is. Yeah.
The code that's on the page is relative to the website, but when you
Mhm.
throw that same code onto the PDF, now that is saying that the image is relative to the PDF, which is
Which
invalid.
there is, right. There is no
Right.
relative to a PDF. It's itself.
I had the
So
same problem, and I have a constant, a token rather, which is my style tag for the PDF. And I did exactly that. Grabbed all of the stuff that was on the original PDF that I had built on another page somewhere else, the other display that I had built, put that into a token, and then when I generated the PDF, the first token that's there is the style.
yeah, I've done something similar. I have a an email slash document manager, and I can basically create templates for PDFs. But again, like you said, there are certain things, that need to be kind of purposely added to it. So one of the things that I've done is I created a Razor script that actually searches my system internally for the latest version of Bootstrap and then grabs the minified version of that Bootstrap file and then inserts that into the PDF generation. That way, I have access to all the Bootstrap commands for styling. So that's like kind of similar to that idea is by, forcibly inserting that, it's available in the PDF, and then I can start using those things, and the PDF will know what those stylings are.
Okay, so I was wondering if the generate PDF source um, where things are being processed into PDFs could handle a URL, and if it did receive a URL, which I know it can do, maybe not through our generate PDF action, if it would create a PDF from rendered HTML, the rendered page. For a frame of reference, I've got a Chrome plugin that'll do the same thing. It'll take any URL and turn it into a very, very good looking, perfect PDF. And so the concept makes sense to me. And I was wondering if I could communicate with that source of the generate PDF, giving it a URL. And if we don't know the answer, that's fine. That's why I'm bringing it up. Maybe somebody does.
So what you just said a minute ago reminded me that there's been some internal discussions, and I'm just wondering if this thing, if PDF is on a feature request yet, but there's been some internal discussions about just that the tool that we have underlying generate PDF is one that's been around for a while, and some discussion about changing over to that kind of a browser-based tool, which would then make that what you're talking about exactly possible. Um, so, and this was something that I mean, the whole thing's first of all, it's a topic that Bogdan brought up, which always adds about 10 points to the likelihood that it gets done. Um, and one of the things that we're trying to that we are doing within the product, it's in the early phases, is add microservices, and generate PDF has been discussed as a great place to do a microservice because it's just it's so it the when you do an action now, generate PDF, it runs within the plant and app code. The the paradigm that we're starting down is to make some things accessible by a microservice. So you still have a generate PDF action, maybe a different named slightly differently to say that it's a microservice, but everything that you do gets passed to the microservice, which just knows how to do a great job at rendering PDFs. And um, the suggestion was made that the underlying component of that microservice would not be the existing service that we're using, but rather that same kind of browser-based plugin tool that you were mentioning. So uh, I would suggest that it would be worth your while to put it in a feature request.
Okay, then if you'll indulge me for a minute longer, I'll say that, I went and looked at that, the source service that's providing the PDF now. I went to their pages and I asked ChatGPT, and I know that it can receive a URL. So I'm thinking, well, how can I send it a URL myself without going through the generate PDF action? And it's unclear to me. Their support document doesn't spell it out, or if it does, I don't interpret it. Um, and so and I don't expect an answer if no one's ever tried this before, but is that a server request that I can, or get, or something that I can throw at that other website and get a finished PDF back? Um, their documentation implies that I'm going to have to install some software on my server to generate these PDFs, but it makes sense to me that if Plantain app is already generating PDFs, that what's needed is already installed or is worked around in some way. So, how can I go around it as well? And any insight in that or not is fine.
Yeah, I don't have any.
I will just put in my little 2 cents for what it's worth. Um, you wouldn't have to install anything because, like you said, since Plantain app is already using it, the required files are installed. You won't be able to use um, a server request or anything like that because it's most likely it's not an API call that you're going to have access to. The only way that can see that you would be able to utilize that and write your own is you would have to create a Razor script. And you'd have to use either C# or VB code to instantiate objects using those files. That's, JavaScript package that was added into your website by Plantain app, and then generate your PDF through your Razor script, store it somewhere, using its own code or whatever, and then that Razor script would return the path of where that PDF was stored, and then the rest of your code in your action stack can do what it does. But again, that would be coding. You would most likely have to create a Razor script with code to do it.
That's good. That helps me.
Have you looked at any of these yet?
I am aware of them, and I have not researched them very well. Actually, I do know that there are several out there who provide this as a service, and they make it easy with API calls. We don't have to pay an extra charge for the
I think
generate
the
PDF
the
service.
last option you had there actually mentioned APIs already. Yeah, okay. They're there.
Yeah. So if I can get one that I don't have to pay extra for, that would be better. And yeah, you don't have to do the research for me, but I appreciate it.
So pieces of what Ben was mentioning earlier, the ability to turn off menus, I threw a link out into the chat that does that. So it says that it's in print, puts your page into print mode and picks a skin that doesn't show anything, no container. And so it simplifies quite a bit. Let's see if I still have this. Yeah,
Yeah,
so this,
if I can give a suggestion, because this is what I've done. I've created that what you just posted, that DNN print mode equals true and all that.
mhm.
I turn that into a constant token, and then whenever I need a page that I need to remove that, I just add that constant token to the end of the URL.
Good
So
idea.
I don't have to constantly remember all of that code.
Mm-hmm. And then, um, I thought that I was going to open up this Campfire contribution and just click the button and show you that this creates a PDF, and for whatever reason, it's creating a nice blank page. So I got to come back and figure out what broke on this. But the idea that you can have graphs and different kinds of components and make it into a PDF demonstrated here. So that
Okay.
might be something that gets fixed, but I mean, it's not real. It's not directly answered your question. Just pointing out, ways of putting reports together, putting different components in.
Sure. Hey, thank you, everybody. I'm happy to yield the floor to the next first call.
I'm going to do a couple other things then, since it's quiet. I haven't updated my graph here. Just a reminder that 126 is the best version we've ever come out with. You should install it and install all the hotfixes, and you're going to be very happy. Make a backup first, but yes, you're going to be very happy. Wednesday, Low-Code Cafe, we're going to dive into automated testing. And this is going to be a series. It's not going to happen one right after the other, but the first one we're going to attack is forms. And the idea is for quality assurance that you design a form and it works in a particular way, and then you want to ensure that the form continues to work in exactly the same way. So if you feed it the same inputs and you're going to get the same outputs, you're going to get the same visual. That's what we're looking at. And then if those kinds if that kind of testing is repeatable, then part of what that allows, for example, is that after if you were to do some maintenance on the form, change something, add a field, whatever, that then the test could be used to make sure that you didn't break something, or perhaps the test needs to be adjusted to reflect the new reality of the form, the additional fields or whatever. But anyway, we're headed towards reliability of a form. The topic is going to continue on with doing after you've got all the fields in and verified, then there'll be business logic testing to say, well, did the form do what it was supposed to do? Making sure that the core, whatever it is that you want to test, make sure that it created assets or sent emails or whatever it was supposed to accomplish. And then finally, as an advanced topic, there's a testing framework called Cypress, which I don't understand and I won't be presenting, but the idea is that Cypress can be used to interact with a web page and to get to verify that it's behaving as you want. And we're doing Cypress testing, for example, internally on multiple places. One is our end-to-end system. We're using it to automate testing to make sure our actions do what they're supposed to do, and but it can be used to interactively test whether is a listing working the way it's supposed to, or to interactively work with Plant and App to create an entity and test all the things that it generated and then delete an entity. Just a nice interactive way of working with it, or rather a automated way of working with this interactive product. So 3 parts of testing, and they'll be coming up over the course of the next month or two. So hopefully, if that's the kind of thing that you want to incorporate into what you're doing, and I know, as I said, I'm doing the forms piece of it right now, and it's Going to be, I'll put it in place on Campfire. It's the kind of thing that it's a recipe that you can bring in all the pieces. It's going to be something probably pretty hard to develop from scratch in an hour, but I'll probably present it as here's a recipe, here's how to load in the components, because there'll be several entities and several workflows, but load in all these things and then you can use it pretty straightforwardly to test uh, your your forms on an ongoing basis. Does that spark anything or questions or gee, I really need that, or no, I don't care at all? Cool.
Some yes, someday I will. The rest.
Somewhere in the middle of yes and I don't care. It's like somewhere in the middle. You know, users give you pretty quick feedback a lot of times, but obviously you want to catch it before it gets there.
Well, exactly. We have some clients, some enterprise clients that are asking about this specifically. They have some pretty involved forms, and I haven't gotten into the specifics yet. But for example, if you have a form that shows or hides different parts based on the way that you interact with it, and you want to make sure that it still is doing that thing. Um, One form could have, let's say, 10 different permutations. And so you edit the form and do something different. Now you want to make sure it still works in all those different permutations. It's painful to sit somebody down and fill in the form in those different ways versus running something to say, yep, it's all fine, or nope, check this. So this is a customer driven thing, but we're turning it into a bigger topic so that it can help everybody. I've mentioned before, and this is just a quick mention then, a couple of weeks from now we'll be at DNN Summit, and I hope you all are signed up. DNN Summit is whether virtual or out in Las Vegas. Very going to be a good couple of days. Mark, any updates from Summit at all?
Well, yeah, you know, obviously it's coming up very soon. It's about 2 weeks from now. A lot of the final preparations are being made. We're all very excited about being back together again in person. And so I appreciate you putting in a plug for it and saying that you'll be there. You're going to be a big anchor, I know, and that's going to be awesome to have you and anybody else there. I know at least one other person on this list is going to be there, and love to see many more. Is Dale, is Patrick going to be there too? Or Bogdan?
Uh, there hasn't been any discussion about Patrick being there. Bogdan was um, weighing whether or not he would come, and I haven't heard yet if there's been a decision.
We'd love to have him. And thanks for
Um,
bringing it up.
I got a look at the schedule the other day. I was quite pleased. Apparently, Monday, if the schedule stays the same, Monday right after the keynote, there's my presentation in the same hall. So hopefully, people will hang around and come to it not because they want to, but because it's just the easiest thing to do. And anyway, so then my session is over now. Then I'll just be able to attend and uh, meet up with folks. So I love the schedule for me. I'm glad it worked out that way.
Well, that sounds good. You know, there's going to be a reception at the end of the day on Monday. There's also going to be a heretofore unpublicized reception on Sunday evening, probably the day you arrive. So make sure you check into that one too.
Very good. I'm my wife Jeannie doesn't know it yet, but I'm planning to drag her to DNN Jeopardy, so that ought to be fun. Okay.
That ought to be fun, yeah.
Well, she'll probably view it as bunch of geeks together in a room, but that's fine. Let's see. A couple of weeks, last week, I think I showed this listing row background thing within Campfire, and I haven't done anything else since then. So, uh, nothing new here. Move along. Nothing to see. There was several interesting topics on the community forum. So we've already spent generate PDF action for a whole web page. That was a good part of our discussion here. Jerry posted this one about an action not firing, and this seemed like a let's see if there's been any further discussion on it. Ugh. Ben.
Just as an update on this, Jerry is doing exactly what Ben's talking about there, but he still has the problem.
So this is a case where something used to work and stopped working. That's at the very highest level. As you read through, this is so you have a form. I believe it's a form. Yes. So you click a button on a form and things start to happen. Part of it is to run a stored procedure, and then the stored procedure takes a long time to run, and it used to just hang out and wait. And oh yeah, see you done. And then now it doesn't run. It doesn't the SQL action starts, but then the control the page doesn't hold open anymore. So the impact that he was trying for, you click the button, stuff runs, and then the page redirects when everything's done. Doesn't work. So that's the change in behavior. And so I was just wondering. I mean, from my perspective, the interacting with web pages really isn't built for this, right? You click a button and web pages tend to return things very quickly. Something that's long running, you can get into problems and things can go wrong. And that was one of my responses that different things that that might break it, and some of it was outside of your control, outside of our control. So
Sometimes these reports that Jerry's talking about will run 7 minutes.
mm-hmm.
That is very, very close to what I was mentioning at the top. Because if I'm not mistaken, the default timeout is 10 minutes for a SQL request. If you're getting something that you're estimating is roughly around 7 minutes, add some, unless you're actually timing it, add some human error in there and think that maybe you are hitting that 10-minute limit. So that is potentially the issue you're having. And like I said, it happened to me where something that ran for the longest time ran at 5 minutes, 6 minutes. But as time progressed, more data was added to the database. Little by little, it took longer and longer and longer. And like a year and a half, 2 years later, all of a sudden I'm hitting that 10-minute mark and then it was no longer working. So what I ended up doing in my case is I had to pre-generate the data. And now what I do is at a 30-minute interval, I have a SQL statement where I purposely set the timeout to be 20 minutes and I just run it and I let it generate. And then that data is pre-compiled. So it doesn't have to generate that data. The results are already created. And then the report that runs just pulls pre-generated data, which basically pulls instantaneously. That's one way of handling it. Another way is like how I mentioned it here, where If it's something that has to be run at that moment, then you can run it, but in an asynchronous situation. But then it's up to you. How do you want to inform the user that that asynchronous process has been completed? Either you give them a page where they can periodically check the status, which would mean that your process, your SQL process, would have to be modified so that it stores somewhere a start and an end time so that you can give that feedback. Otherwise, the only other thing that I could think of is somehow in the way you do it asynchronously, that the last thing it does is kick off an email to the person that initiated it. There's different ways to
Yep.
approach it.
We did a, I don't know, cafe or campfire, I think a cafe, talking about it's possible to set up a notification system so that wherever they are on your site that it shows a notification queue, a bell with a number on it, and then so you could add something to a queue if you built a mechanism for it, but there's nothing, just you do have to figure out how am I going to communicate that. Not directly related to this story, but kind of in this area of things that work, and then when you start loading it with a lot of data, it doesn't. I wrote the emails that you get with the newsletters. I wrote a system for that and did a lot of the work through low code. So it was just something that the original design was you kick off a workflow, and in testing, the workflow is doing a lot of generation and sending an email, and it just goes continuously front to back, and maybe it was running for 10 seconds. But you throw 8,000 emails on it, and so now it's going to be a very long running process. In our case, some of the things that we're doing, maybe it might run 2 or 3 hours. Well, I can guarantee you that it will not run 2 or 3 hours without getting interrupted. Meaning, if you write a workflow that is going to do 2 or 3 hours worth of work, IIS, I'm sorry, DNN, Planet App runs under DNN, which is running under IIS. IIS site can get reset, and when that happens, your job just stops unexpectedly. So when you get into things that are very long running, it's worth trying to design something that's resilient, where it will pick up where it was left off if it gets interrupted. Or find more efficient ways of doing things. In my case, I did a little bit of both. Something that converting from create list and run a bunch of SQL for each item on the list was replaced with a very efficient one-line SQL query that created 8,000 emails. The data for each email, and it runs almost instantaneously. So anyway, these things that are very long running and trying to interact with anything under IIS, you could run into problems. So these kinds of resilient things, just like Ben has pointed out here, queue methodology becomes important. Anyone else have any experience in this area? Patrick, the different clients that you would advise, anything that you can add?
I can't think of anything offhand, no.
If I find the right unmute button, then I have an idea.
You've done it. We hear you, Jim.
Yeah, I have a long running process, and my approach to that, sort of like Ben's, is at the end of that first page that calls the stored procedure, I always redirect to a second page, and that that page has a timer on it to keep refreshing every 30 seconds. And then it just checks for, you have to have some external. In my case, I'm able to read from a database and go, okay, that process is done now, move on. And then I redirect back to a different page when that process is done. But I have that sort of holding area in the middle, because not letting the users move on to something else until that stored procedure is done.
So in something like that, I mean, the option is there to not hold them, right? If they want to wait for it, they can sit and wait for it in the browser. If you could design it so that they could navigate on to other things, and then they would have to come back to check or something like that. But
yeah, my actual method is I generate a GUID, make a call, and that GUID goes into a table, and they keep going back and checking for a response in a table for that GUID. So they could just say, hey, I don't care about that GUID, and go on and do something else. And when the stored procedure is done, it writes back a GUID with the response. In this case, it's generating data and putting JSON back into that same table, but it puts a response GUID back into that table that person can, using the original one, go retrieve the GUID of the second, the response, and get the data back. I haven't read through all the notes on Jerry's post, so I don't know if you guys might have already covered that, but I can write that out there if you think that might be an approach.
What we run into with that is sometimes there's usually one lady that runs these reports, and she thinks it didn't finish when in fact it actually did finish because it didn't return her where she thought it was going to return her. Then what happens is she'll run it again.
mm-hmm.
And then sometimes she'll run it again. And so now you got maybe three versions of the same stored procedure running, and they just start stacking up, and your CPU starts peaking.
So yeah, that's another argument for more of a queue structure, right? Even if it whether the methodology that Jim was talking about, you could control whether or not the thing is actually running already and stop it, not allow another submit. But if you have different users running different reports with different parameters, and you did it by way of a queue, then it could address them one by one, rather than letting the selections of individual users load down the CPU. So it might be time for a different design that she's going to have to learn something new, or see the pattern that Jim was talking about with page refreshing, but more actively holding her in place rather than waiting to see if a toast message pops up.
If I can just pop in for a split second,
Please.
I don't want to beat a dead horse topic here, but very similar to what Jim was saying. Like for example, I think I pretty much implemented what Jim is saying, but I did it a little bit. I don't know if his is, but I did mine a little bit more generic. I just basically call it an async queue. It's a queue, but what it allows to do is you insert into a table a command, which you program for, and it has a start, stop time, and it also has a details field. That details field is a JSON string. Whatever is being run, whether it be a SQL statement, whether it be an action stack, a workflow, whatever is triggered by that command being inserted into that table, it will update that details field in that table, that JSON string, periodically with more information. So from that point on, I have one page that I just call my async details page. Like was said by Jim, it uses a record ID and it just pulls out the information that I program it to read off of the details JSON string. So as someone is going in there, that page is set on like a 10-second refresh or something like that. It just keeps reading that string and it will display in a text box what the latest status is. So if you're doing something that like every, let's say 10,000 records, it's saying it processed this many records, you would see your little text box saying, 10,000 records processed, 20,000, 30,000, 40,000.
Mm-hmm.
They would be constantly getting updates. And then same thing in the respect of not running it again by stamping it with the command and seeing that there's no stop time. If a person tries to run it again, you can look into that table, see that that command was put in and has no stop time, which means it's currently running, and prevent someone from re-executing it. And then you can put up a message and say, this process is already currently in progress. And potentially even shift them over to that async page with the ID to that record so that they can see the process and what the status is at that moment. That's something that, again, similar to like I think what Jim was saying, is maybe something that can help alleviate the situation that you're dealing with.
Like so many other things, this kind of, to me, falls into a crawl, walk, run thing with Plant an App. You can design something that works, and then over time you might need to improve it or enhance it. Becomes worth building a queue mechanism, for example, or this timestamp and data to keep track of what's going on. So more of a macro view. So yep, better. There are design patterns that work and design patterns that might be better.
Jerry wanted to be on the call today, but unfortunately, he's having a problem, I think, with vertigo or something. It's really got him kind of whacked out right now. So he apologizes to everybody.
The
But
he's probably missing getting on his bike. If he should definitely just take his vertigo and get on the road.
yeah, well, the problem is we got a lot of snow over here, especially at
Uh,
his house. So he's not going anywhere.
all right. Well, tell you what, let's close out. It was a good session. We'll do it again next Friday, this same hour. And thank you all for all the pointers and helping each other out. We will hang around a few minutes if you can, and we'll do Afterglow. See you next week.